growing population, Vancouver is continuing to struggle with providing diverse and affordable housing for its citizens. Vancouver already has a housing crisis, with the housing market being extremely expensive. The market will become more and more expensive, as an additional 1 million people are expected to live in Vancouver by 2050. To stop this from happening, we need to create policies now that ensure everyone will be able to get diverse and affordable housing. Also, by doing this, we will be avoiding urban sprawl, which is bad for the environment, because it causes things like more air pollution due to a higher need for driving, and loss of natural habitat due to the construction of new buildings. We need to act quick, and thanks to the Metro Vancouver 2050 regional document, we have an idea of what strategies to implement to provide diverse and affordable housing. Starting off, let's define the two main terms here: housing diversity and housing affordability. Housing diversity is housing that is suitable for a variety of people and needs. This means having a range of housing types in a given neighborhood, like apartments, townhouses, and regular houses, all in the same area. This is beneficial because everyone doesn't have the same needs, and it gives people options. Housing affordability is the ability for the average person to afford a home. If a market isn't very affordable, it means it's very expensive, with most homeowners being rich and rent being high. The opposite is a market being affordable, where a lot of people can afford to have proper housing, and not just the rich, and rent is not that expensive on that. The first strategy is to expand the supply and diversity of housing. To do this, we would need to start by developing action plans that are based off actual data, such as regional demographics and market conditions. This allows us to see what we need and how much it costs. Next, we would have to touch on policies that are already in place to help them fit into this plan, and remove policies that inhibit this plan. Then we would have to advocate for new policies that actually support this plan, like mandating affordable housing through inclusionary zoning powers. These powers make developers who want to build new housing set aside some of their new units for affordable use. These units are used for sale or rented at affordable rates, or the government sets aside their own land in various areas, developing new projects that are diverse and affordable. The next strategy is protecting tenants and expanding, retaining, and renewing rental housing supply. Starting off, the strategy involves setting a goal. Currently, the target by 2050 is to have 15% of newly completed housing units built in urban centers and transit development areas combined to be affordable renting housing units. This will provide for lots of new rental housing to help with the increasing demand. This is what the government can do by themselves, but the real solution is from the private sector. We need to advocate for the government to provide incentives for the private sector to invest in rental housing to help achieve the current and anticipated needs. Also, we need to advocate for more measures to address the issues of housing, speculation, and vacant homes for increasing long-term rental options. By doing something like increasing the tax on homeowners that don't stay in their house more than half a year and don't rent. This is already happening with the empty homes tax, but it's only 3%, which really isn't that much of an incentive for these already rich homeowners. Raising the tax amount higher would provide a greater incentive for these vacant owners to rent or sell, allowing for more people to be housed. Or if they refuse to do so, it would mean more tax going to the government to help with these funding issues. The last strategy is for meeting the housing needs of lower income households and populations experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Starting off, we must evaluate areas with a prevalence of low income and homelessness, and make actions and policies that can efficiently address this issue. Some of these policies need to be for ensuring measures that stimulate non-market rental supply, capital, and funding to support the construction of permanent, affordable housing currently, and the anticipating housing needs of these populations for the future. The funding is needed for actually constructing the housing initially and for continuing to maintain it for providing long-term housing. As I previously stated, it can come from places like the empty homes tax. Next, we need to look at the environmental aspect of all of this. With more people and more housing options, it would mean more greenhouse gas emissions and the use of more resources. Buildings in Vancouver already produce up to 25% of Metro Vancouver's emissions, with a large part of that being housing. So we need to develop in a way that's sustainable and creates the least amount of greenhouse gas emissions as possible. This would mean trying to make buildings more reliant on electricity than they already are, by getting rid of things that are dependent on natural gas use and actually constructing these buildings out of as many sustainable materials as possible.
A really good mitigation measure that ties both aspects of social equity and the environment together is providing this diverse and affordable housing in areas where public transit is pre-developed or being developed and is good and readily available. Having good and available means of public transportation allows people with a lower income to travel without needing a car, which is not only beneficial in an economic and social sense, as they can travel to work or basically anywhere they want without worrying about transportation, but it's also good for the environment since using public transportation is really good for mitigation as it produces way less carbon dioxide than driving cars.